The room was loud until it wasn't. Laughter, boots scraping concrete, metal chairs shifting, then the door opened and every sound died as if someone had pulled the air from the room. A wounded female sniper stepped inside, her arm bound in blood-darkened gauze, her uniform torn and faded. She didn't look for attention. She didn't need to. Silence found her on its own. They had been arguing moments before, young operators fresh from training, officers reviewing deployment lists, a few civilians who had never smelled cordite or fear. Someone had even scoffed when her name appeared on the schedule, muttering that she shouldn't even be there. Now no one spoke. They watched her walk, slow but steady, a faint limp in her step, eyes sharp and calm like a horizon after a storm. She carried herself the way veterans do, not upright to impress, but balanced, as if every movement had been weighed against survival. Her name was Captain Elena Cross, though most people just called her Cross. She had been gone for 6 months, listed as recovering, whispered about in hallways as a cautionary tale. The mission that shattered her shoulder and nearly took her life had also saved an entire platoon pinned down in a valley that maps refused to remember. Official reports said, enemy fire neutralized by long-range precision engagement. The men who were there said something else. They said an angel with a rifle had dragged them out of hell. She reached the table at the front of the briefing room and rested her good hand on the edge. The colonel stood, surprised and visibly unsettled. "Captain," he said carefully, "you weren't expected back this soon." "I know," she replied. Her voice was quiet, worn smooth by pain and discipline. But the war doesn't wait for bones to heal. No one laughed. No one breathed too loudly. The silence wasn't discomfort anymore, it was respect, dawning and heavy. Cross took a seat. When she did, a young sniper across the room, barely 23, still carrying the confidence of untested skill, looked away. He had said earlier, before she entered, that legends were exaggerated. That no one made shots at that distance. That stories were for recruitment posters. His hands now trembled slightly as he adjusted his gloves. The briefing began, but it faltered. The colonel kept glancing at Cross, as if measuring whether to invite her in or keep her at the edge of the conversation. Finally, he stopped pretending. "Captain Cross was part of Operation Iron Halo," he said. "She has requested to address the team." Cross stood again. Her shoulder protested, pain flashing white-hot, but she ignored it. Pain was familiar. Fear was not. "I won't take much of your time," she said. "You're being deployed into terrain that doesn't forgive mistakes. The enemy knows it better than you do. And confidence, unchecked confidence, will get you killed." Some of the younger soldiers bristled. She saw it and didn't soften her tone. "I was once where you are. Strong, fast, certain. Then I watched my certainty bleed out in the dirt while I waited for extraction that never came." Images stirred behind her eyes, dust choking her lungs, radio static screaming silence, the sound of men calling her name when she couldn't answer. She pushed on. "I survived because someone trusted me with one last shot. And because I didn't miss." She paused, letting that land. "This isn't about being the best shooter. It's about responsibility. Every time you pull a trigger, someone's life ends, or continues. You carry that weight forever." The room was utterly still. After the briefing, as chairs scraped back and conversations resumed in hushed tones, Cross remained seated. The young sniper approached her slowly, like someone nearing a wild animal he wasn't sure would bite. "Ma'am," he said, voice tight, I said some things earlier." She looked up at him, eyes steady, not unkind. "You said what you believed." "I was wrong." She nodded once. "You'll be wrong again. Just make sure you're not wrong when it matters." He swallowed. "They say you made a shot from over 2 kilometers. With a shattered shoulder." "They say a lot of things," she replied. "What they don't say is how scared I was. Or how I almost didn't take the shot." "Why did you?" he asked. Cross looked down at her wrapped arm. "Because I heard someone crying for their mother on the radio. And because no one else could." Weeks later, they were deployed. The valley was worse than the satellite images suggested. Narrow, steep, and crawling with unseen eyes. The unit moved carefully, but caution only delays fate, it doesn't stop it. When the ambush came, it came hard. Gunfire echoed like thunder trapped between stone walls. Orders overlapped. Smoke swallowed visibility. Cross was positioned on overwatch, higher ground, her rifle balanced against rock that cut into her wounded shoulder. She bit back a scream as she settled in. Pain flared, but she welcomed it. Pain meant she was alive. Pain meant she could still fight. Below, the unit was pinned. One man went down. Then another. The radio crackled with panic, then fear. Cross breathed. In. Out. The world narrowed to wind, distance, and the faint shape of a target moving between shadows. Her hands were steady, not because she wasn't afraid, but because fear had taught her how to be still. She fired. The shot rolled through the valley like a single, final word. The enemy fire faltered. Another shot. Then another. Silence followed, heavier than before. When extraction finally arrived, the soldiers looked up toward her position with something close to reverence. Cross remained where she was, rifle still raised, until she was sure the danger had passed. Only then did she let herself collapse back against the stone, tears mixing with sweat and blood. Back at base, days later, she walked into another room. This one was quieter. Medics paused. Soldiers stood straighter. Conversations stopped, not from shock this time, but from understanding. The young sniper found her again. He didn't speak. He just nodded. She returned the gesture. Cross never asked for recognition. She didn't need medals or speeches. What she wanted was simpler. She wanted those who followed to understand that strength wasn't loud. Courage wasn't fearless. And legends weren't born from talent alone, but from choosing to stand when it would be easier to fall. As she left the room, the silence followed her again. Not the silence of doubt or disbelief, but the silence of people who had just witnessed something true. And long after the door closed behind her, that silence stayed, reminding everyone present that greatness doesn't announce itself. Sometimes, it limps in quietly, wounded but unbroken, and changes everything without saying another word.